So I wanted to just start off by tell us a bit about yourself, your family, and give us some context would be great.
Okay, I am a single mum of 3 boys. My eldest is 19 and my youngest is 3, and I have an 11-year-old in the middle. I've struggled with depression all my life. I can't remember a time when I didn't. Wasn't sad, wasn't upset, wishing I was somewhere else. And it wasn't until I had my first son, Daniel, that I really felt the impacts of mental illness. I've been through a lot, but come out the other side, doing things such as this, helping to educate others and give other people hope. That's my purpose, I guess, other than being a mother.
And so, Hannah, you're also an author. You've written a number of books. Tell me about that.
Yes, while I was in hospital on the wards, I used to struggle finding the words to, I guess, let them know how I was feeling. So my automatic response when they'd say, "How do you feel?" I'd say, "Fine," which actually wasn't true. So I started writing things in a little notepad that, you know, grew thicker and thicker every admission, every time I was in a bit of a rut. And I lent it to a friend of mine and I just said, "Look, this is how I've been feeling." And as a surprise, they went and bound a copy of it and put it together in a little book, and it was never meant to be anything other than my journal, I guess. And then from there it's grown. So I've found more outlets, more things to talk about, more things, and I guess being braver to say exactly how it is, because you can read all the books in the world written by professionals, but unless you've been through it, you just don't understand really.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I guess I've got 3 of them now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we'll talk at the end maybe about how people can get hold of them. So you've mentioned that you've lived with depression for as long as you can remember. You know, it's been part of your life. Can you talk a bit about when you got diagnosed with BPD and when that was and what that's been like for you, both having that diagnosis and also as a parent?
Having my son, my first son, so young, I was only just 18. It was always put down to postnatal depression, being so young and, you know, not having much life experience. And it wasn't until my second son come along, who is now 11, that I actually started to think there's more going on. There was just patterns in behaviour. There were things that triggered other emotions that would come out. And it wasn't until 2008 that I actually had that confirmation of diagnosis of BPD. And at first I was like, no, I'm fine, you know, there is nothing wrong. But it actually makes sense, you know. And then there was the acceptance. I had to accept that this was going to be part of my life forever. And then I had to learn live with it, I guess. It's kind of like a shadow that's by your side and it's always there and nobody else can see it but you. And just learning the triggers, learning how to understand, I guess that's the right word, and appreciate it. And I know that's a big thing, appreciate, but you learn to appreciate it because it makes you who you are.
You've talked before with me about how that having this in your life has in some ways become, you have to be befriended in a way. You have to actually accept it, and it's had some positive impact as well, having the diagnosis finally. Was that helpful?
It was. It took a long time, don't get me wrong. It took years of, you know, help in the hospital and at home, DBT therapy to understand exactly what it was, because it's easy to say you've got BPD, but then you've got the people that just are very naive and don't understand, and they think it's like multiple personalities and, oh, you know, who am I talking to today kind of thing, but it's just not, that's not what it is at all. But for me, it's made me a better mother. I think, because I can have conversations with my children that I never had with my own parents, especially my mother. It was a very toxic relationship, but it's in turn made my children better people.
So can you talk a bit about that? You said that it's made you a better mum. Perhaps a little bit about how it's impacted on your children and what you have done specifically. It sounds like you've done a lot to offset that and sort of talk to them about that. Can you talk a bit about that?
I like to be real because every day is not great. Some days are just really bad and you've got all this noise in your head, like you've got thoughts that are constantly churning around, but your children need attention. So I had to let them know that on those days when I seemed like I wasn't caring, or, you know, I'd be a bit short with them when they asked me a question, I just explained to them that it wasn't them, and that what was happening in my head, because often I'd see, you know, both my boys go off and cry, and they didn't want me to see them cry because they just thought, well, you know, mum's upset with me, but it wasn't the case. So having those conversations have allowed them to then come to me and speak to me about things that are going wrong or going on in their life that I guess they would struggle with somebody else. They know that it's a safe place, that I'm not going to, you know, tell them off for feeling a certain way, because, you know, let's face it, life's pretty crappy sometimes, and you just have to go with it, make the best of it.
It's really incredibly brave of you, because a lot of parents, I think, try to hide those kind of parts of their life from their children, but I think it's just a very brave thing to do, and I think, you know, I applaud you for that, really, to have the honest conversations. Other things that have been helpful, other challenges as a parent, and other things that you have found have been helpful, either from services or family, friends?
I don't have a lot to do with my family. I have a very small circle of friends. I used to be one of those people that would befriend anybody for the sake of having somebody. They were toxic. It took a long time to learn how to be assertive and advocate for myself and be like, actually, you're not bringing goodness to my life, so you need to go. And I guess it wasn't until my children went into care so I could get help for my depression and the BPD and be stable in my mental health that I got to understand the impacts of me not being good, not being well was for them, because I couldn't have people around all the time. They needed their mum. They didn't need, I can't think of the right word, a part-time mother, I guess. That's the right wording. So finding the friends now that I have, it's been hard, but they know me, they know my family, they know the dynamics of us, and they understand when we're not okay. I mean, my best friend, she can come and know that sometimes I don't want to talk, I just need her here, and she's okay with that. But there are a lot of people that don't understand that. They, you know, they try and get you to the talk. They want you to go out and do things, and it's like sometimes you just don't have the emotional capacity or energy to do that. So finding people that understand, that want to understand and do understand, that really helps.
So sort of thinking about if we're trying to raise awareness about what it means to have BPD and also be a mum, a single mum, are there any other key kind of messages you'd like to give to anyone, really, whether they're working in services or they know somebody who's got BPD and has got children? What are the things you would like to say to them?
Never stop trying. Every day you're going to learn more about yourself. Every day you're going to understand more about your triggers, about what works, what doesn't work. And just because it worked yesterday doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. And it's not going to work next week. It might never work again, but at that moment, at that time, it got you through and it did what it needed. It taught you something. It showed you how brave, how strong you were. And I guess ultimately it got you through that day.
And that's fantastic. And if I'm thinking about your kids, particularly your 11-year-old, whom I've had the privilege of meeting, if he was here, what do you think he might say about, what messages would he have for perhaps other children or other mums out there?
Bit of a hard one, that.
Yeah.
I think that he would just, I mean, he always says, I love you, Mum. And I always say, I love you too. It's just natural. But on the days when he knows that it's been really hard for me, those are the days and those are the moments that I treasure the most, because he can just look at me and he can understand that Mum's really crappy today. You know, so he'll give me that extra hug, or he'll make me a cup of tea, or he'll just sit beside me and just say, what do you want, Mum? And I just think for an 11-year-old to do that, that's pretty amazing.
What are things have you done that's been different? How has your parenting been different to how you experienced it, and have you celebrated that?
I don't put my children down for feeling certain ways. I don't make them feel like they're not important. I give them the space to be able to come to me and say, I'm having a really crappy day today, Mum, and this is why. My own mother never did that for me. She put me down a lot. Everything. I was never validated in my feelings. I was made to feel that I should sit and not speak and have no emotions and basically be a robot. And I just promised that I would never do that to my own children. And I think I can say I'm proud that I don't do that. I let them be themselves, let them be children.
That's fantastic. And you've also got another little string to your bow. You're a foster mum now.
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Very recent. I've been looking after a little baby girl for the last 3 months. And it's something I never dreamed that after, you get your diagnosis of mental illness or mental health, that I never dreamed that I could, be trusted, I guess, to look after another child. But I am, and that's probably the grumbling you hear in the background. She's sucking away on a little rattle. And she's just brought so much joy to our lives. And I feel proud to say that, my children, again, can say in years to come, Mum didn't let that beat her because she did this and that. And, I want the list to be endless, and I want my children to be proud. Coming from a small town, the stigma always is what stopped me in my tracks. It was the fear of the unknown, of what people would say. And being such a small town, everybody knew everybody, and it always got back to my mum. And I guess everything I did to try and help myself was shot down or shut down because it was seen as me attention seeking. So it took for me to make that move to come here to Melbourne and basically hit rock bottom to be able to get the supports that I needed. And once I did, it was a slow climb, but I started climbing that ladder.
And that was when you got the diagnosis, what you think is what's the correct diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the exact moment when the doctor said it to me and, handed me the little pamphlet. I just was like, yeah, this makes so much sense. But at the same time, and then, the next moment it was just like, oh, great, I'm broken forever.
Right.
But, that's just that fear that's in you that you think, oh, no, I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to survive. I only had one son at the time, so I just thought, oh, poor him, he's going to have such a bad life. He's got damaged goods, basically, as a mum. But I don't think that anymore. I think, they've got a better mum because of it.